IVM.
Hey everybody, quick request once again, if you could help us out by filling out our survey. It's at ivmpodcast.com/survey. This really helps us talk to advertisers about the kinds of people listening to these shows. Really do appreciate your help, and we're going to be doing a random drawing, and we'll be sending out some IVM swag. Hope you enjoy that.
Hello and welcome to this first episode of 2021 of the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. It's releasing one day later than expected because the third test match at Sydney between India and Australia went into the fifth day. It's not something we're used to. So you will be hearing this on Tuesday instead of the regular Monday show. But guys, I've got a packed show. I've got a packed house. I've got Varun with me. I've got Ashwin with me. It's DJ here from London. I'm going to come to Ashwin first. Ashwin, how's the Josh, man? How's the Josh after that test match?
Man, the match ends at 1 a.m. my time. I was exhausted. I had a long weekend and I couldn't sleep. There was just it felt like my heart was racing so fast. And I tweeted this, but it's so ridiculous to think that a 50-run partnership in 248 balls can cause that kind of Josh, right? But that's Test cricket for you. Test cricket is just pure, unadulterated joy. Test cricket is love. It was magnificent. It was just phenomenal. I'm just still so high on this rush.
Awesome. Varun, a very happy new year to you as well. How are you feeling, man? Like, it's a slightly different time zone for you, so probably during your working day on Monday. But how are you getting on after that rush of adrenaline?
Yeah, I mean, it was fantastic, DJ. Like, I can't believe that this was the first set of cricket that we've seen in the new year, in the new decade. And if this match is anything to go by it, I'm extremely excited about India's prospects over the next 10 years because the boys just did fantastic. Like, we're going to delve into all of the detail, but I want to say this feels like a win. And I also want to say I had a hard 30 minutes post the match, trying to explain to my wife that we drew the test match because I was jumping up and down and she came out to celebrate and, did Vihari hit the winning runs? And I was like, no, he played like 6 of 100 balls and she just couldn't understand it. And so I guess that's what happens.
Oh man, we're going to get into all of this. And again, as you spoke about it, I was literally getting goosebumps as we talked about it. But it was Rahul Dravid's birthday as well. It was the day that the Virushka baby has been born. So congratulations to Virat and Anushka. I think we tweeted out saying maybe that the baby should be called Sydney. It's a baby girl. So that would be amazing. But guys, there is so much to get into. There's lots to talk about in this show. So let's get straight into it, man. I'm going to, again, try and keep it below 2 hours. I know it's really hard for me. But first, okay, let's go back to last week. We didn't do a show last week because we said we'll talk after the Sydney test. But there was so much that went on even before the game. It was almost like there was enough material to talk about before the game. So Ashwin and I actually spoke to the guys at Couch Pundit already about all of this, about the bio bubble breach and the fan that tweeted out the picture of or the video of these guys sitting in a restaurant and eating. But Varun, I want to get your reaction on that very quickly because I know it's slightly seeming like old news, but it's not something that we've covered. What did you make of that whole bio bubble breach scenario?
I mean, to be honest, DJ, the rules aren't very clear to me because I have seen Steve Smith, etc., eating at a restaurant and them posting a video. I don't know if the rules are different per city, per state, by team, by visiting team. So I'm not 100% sure. But I mean, let's be honest. I was discussing this with a friend on Friday and we were having drinks. And after 4 drinks, this topic came up about the video that was posted with Rohit, etc. And we were just like, what if Dhoni was sitting on the table next to us? We would have just paid his bill. We would have taken a video. We would have been excited. So can't fault the fan, but I mean, really hope that the guys didn't do something that was breaking quarantine. But anyway, I mean, like you said, it feels like it's in the past because all was well and good.
Yeah, what did you make of the Aussie media's reaction to it? Because I know Ashwin and I thought that they may have been building it up because they lost the Boxing Day test without Virat Kohli, and there was a little bit of edge to it. So were they blowing it a little bit out of proportion? Because I think what happened was they were eating outside, it rained, and then they came in with their food, and that was the bio bubble breach because they're not allowed to eat inside in a restaurant. So what did you make of the Aussie media and their reaction to it?
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely they would have tried to blow it out of proportion. We know Australia. We know that anything they can latch on to in the middle of a series, before a series. I mean, for God's sake, even after this draw test match, you heard Tim Payne and the person interviewing him talk about how Australia has not lost at the Gabba for 40 years. So it's been 1 minute since since this has been an epic kind of draw for India, and they're already talking about how the next test match and playing mind games. So I think they do blow everything out of proportion.
Yeah, and we're definitely going to talk about Tim Payne and his chatter. I mean, it was almost like they'd already lost this game, so he was sledging about the next game, which was slightly absurd. I mean, ridiculous. But Ashwin, again, I know we spoke about this briefly on the Sledge Pundit show, but let's talk about the selection before this third test match, right? The big news for India was that Rohit Sharma was picked in the 11. He was made the vice captain. Ashwin, what did you make of that selection with Rohit Sharma kind of being parachuted into the squad and into the 11, doing his quarantine, and then kind of surpassing Ashwin and Pujara almost to take on that leadership responsibility?
Yeah, it's interesting. It feels like this was a year ago that all this happened, because the Sydney Test has just taken over share of mind. But it almost feels like going into the Gabba now, Shastri and Rahane just have to go down the list of all players. It's like, all right, can we find 11? Are there 11 that are available and not injured? And whoever they are going to play. But coming back to your question on Rohit, it's interesting, right? And this is where I specifically, I think, have maintained the point of view that there was a lot more that happened behind the scenes with the Mumbai Indians, with the BCCI, with the Ambanis and the BCCI, etc., during this whole debacle. And I know Varun probably faults Rohit for it more than I do. I think there was some background politics, some background power grabs, etc., that happened. Rohit was kind of caught in the middle of a very tough situation. Let's put it that way. And so, given that, we just got to a point where Rohit said, you know what, I'm fine now. I'm flying to Australia. I'm going to do my 2-week quarantine. Coming out of the quarantine, I think it was just the BCCI wanted to put a show of faith in the guy, saying, hey, you have your spot and we consider you an important leader in the team. And so that's what it was. And what I've shared before as well is I don't think on paper, for example, this is just me, one person's point of view, but I don't think the vice captain title is that important to Pujara. And so I think that was probably the discussion that happened. Is like, hey, you guys are all still important in the decision-making process, but publicly we're going to announce Rohit as vice because it allows two things. It allows us to reinforce to the world and to him how important he is to this squad. And B, it allows us to announce earlier than we normally would that he's going to be in the playing 11. And if you remember, coming out of the Melbourne Test, Rahane right away said, we're excited to have Rohit back. He's definitely going to play. So there's been this desire to drive that message. So I think, on academically a little bit of a tough call. He's not the best Test vice captain, but he's an important player in the setup, and I think that was the driver of it.
Awesome. And Varun, let's have your thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two things just to add. One is, we talked a lot about incumbent, and that's the reason Shaw played. And Rohit Sharma just had to play, right? Whether you call it the incumbent, the better batsman, the brand name, the fear being put into Aussies that, Rohit Sharma is back, whatever the reason might be, he's the incumbent. He had to play. And so for me, it kind of becomes a no-brainer. I think when it comes to the vice captaincy, agree with a lot of points Ashwin said, but also let's be honest, he's got at least some captaincy experience. Now, you might not be able to say Mumbai Indians is the same as playing Test cricket. I think all of us agree on that. But captaincy is captaincy, and I think a lot of these youngsters and the boys in the squad would look up to Rohit, second to a Kohli. So I think it's a combination of the two to give Rahane that support. And Pujara and Ashwin are supporting Rahane 100%. Like Ashwin said, they don't need a title to be able to continue doing that.
Varun, I'm just going to ask you, so do you think there was no... what do you think Ashwin would have really made of that? Because I felt that Ashwin should have probably got that vice captaincy because he is a test specialist. He is somebody who's been captain of the Kings 11 Punjab, for example. He's a thinking cricketer and stuff. So obviously he's fine with it. But did we miss an opportunity to reward him? That I guess that's more the question. Rohit is a shoe into the playing 11, no doubt, and great limited overs cricketer and captain. But did we miss an opportunity to recognize his contribution to the test team?
I think yes. It would have helped. But again, DJ, we have to remember it's probably for 2 tests, right? As soon as this Gabba test ends, India heads back home. They start playing England. Ashwin is never going to be in contention for vice captaincy in any situation. So whatever you're doing, it's a stopgap measure. And I don't think Pujara and Ashwin need that external motivation.
There you have it, guys. That's an interesting view. And I mean, again, all of this seems so far away with all that's gone on in the Sydney Test. So let's actually get to the Test match. Our selection, of course, Ashwin, I think we predicted it. There was no Natarajan, but we got that Mayank was going to sit out for Rohit, and in came Saini for the injured Umesh Yadav. So that was India's 11, those two changes. And then Australia had a new opening pair, which... Will Pucovski and David Warner. Now, let's talk very briefly, Ashwin, about Warner. He didn't look like 100% to you, did he?
Not even close. I mean, it was very evident, not mostly from when on the field, but there was a couple times he couldn't run. I think it was the first run they took, or one of the first few runs they took when he pulled up. And you're saying this is day one of a 5-day match. This guy's coming in with a pre-existing injury, and he pulled up a little short. So it was entertaining over the course of the days to see him arbitrarily at one point on day 5 running very, very, very fast to chase a ball when the batsmen were not trying to take runs, when runs were not at play. But he was obviously trying to signal to his skipper and his selectors that I'm good, you should take me to Brisbane and play me at the Gabba. But yeah, Warner wasn't 100%.
Absolutely. And Varun, let's talk about this guy, Will Pucovski, right? He's apparently had 9 concussions in his cricketing career, which is just absolutely insane. I mean, there was one point I think I read where he was running and he tripped and he hit his head and he had a concussion. I mean, this guy is like the walking wounded, but he's made it back into the Australian setup. He looks like the guy who was a villain in Stranger Things, right? With that mullet and stuff, which was just ridiculous. But boy, he batted. He got 50 in his debut Test match. What did you make of this guy, Will Pucovski?
Well, I mean, firstly, I haven't seen Stranger Things. So for all of you guys who are like me, I thought he looked like Bobby Deol and I wanted him to sing Dunya Hasino Ka Mela. That's what I thought when I saw Will Pucovski. But for all of you who have seen Stranger Things, I'm sure that relates as well. DJ, I didn't know he had 9 concussions. I know he was injured. And for me, I think he looked good. Like, Justin Langer has been talking about him and Cameron Green, saying they belong at this level. Of course, Langer says that about everyone who plays for Australia. But to me, I thought he was up for the challenge, right? He said also that Bumrah and Ashwin facing them was not easy, especially Ashwin. But he played very positive cricket. He kept the runs moving, even with Warner going early. I thought he was very good. And I think I do want to see him continue because Australia has had a tough time with their Test openers. I remember even in the 2018 series, they had Aaron Finch. More recently, Joe Burns. Matthew Wade is playing up and down. So I have a feeling Pucovski, if he can stay away from concussions, it'll be a pretty good, solid kind of opening partnership for Australia.
And the guy I think that I'm thinking of in the Stranger Things... Ashwin, have you watched Stranger Things by any chance on Netflix?
I have not, but I think I've seen visuals of the guy you're talking about. But
you've seen
Bobby Deol.
You've seen Gupt, right?
Of course I've seen Bobby Deol. and also the classic movie Apne with Sunny and Bobby and
Dharam
Paji.
But the hair is short in Apne. In Gupt, the hair is long, like it's the Pucovski hair. So anyway. I digress.
True. It's the mullet, man. It's like the Tiger King guy. He has a mullet as well. But anyway, let's move on. So much to chat about, man. I'm really getting stressed about how much we have to get through. But Pant drops Pucovski twice in the course of that 50. How much hate did our boy get at that point on social media? He can't keep wicket. Even when he dropped Pucovski the first time, it didn't cost that much. It cost like 30 runs eventually. But Ashwin didn't look like it was okay. And I mean, frankly, the second catch, I want to come to you, Ashwin, on that. Ashwin, talk me through what happened in the second catch that Pucovski pulled. It hit a stop edge, Pant ran backwards, parried it once, then sort of grabbed it on the second time and claimed the catch. So I know you had some strong feelings about that drop, quote unquote. So let's go through that.
Yeah, I mean, let's put the caveat that, again, anybody who's listened to this show long enough knows that for some reason, inexplicably, Rishabh Pant brings out the biggest emotions in all three of us on this show. But exactly as you said, right? There was a top edge. It went over Pant's head. So he was back. He had turned around and was running backwards, which is always, anybody who's played cricket knows it's an incredibly difficult catch to run away from the ball as the ball is coming over your head. And he had to dive full length to try to get to it. So 2 sort of things that were behind your question. 1, he probably should have taken that catch the first time, right? He got there. He did all the hard work. He got there. He was jumping kind of at eye level height. He jumped and he got to it. He didn't catch it. He parried the ball. And as the ball was dropping and he was falling, it almost feels like it happened in slow-mo. he reached her or over like from both sides with his gloves and scooped it up right at the edge of the ground. He sort of claimed the catch, but I don't think he exactly did because he didn't get up and start celebrating a lot. He didn't say I dropped it, but he didn't say I caught it either. I think he was just not 100% sure.
He didn't pull a Ricky Ponting.
He didn't pull a Ricky Ponting, who, his coach from Ricky Ponting is a different level. And then it went up to the third umpire, and the third umpire, as has been my beef with the umpires for a little while, no pun intended on the restaurant they went to. But my issue with the third umpire has been it hasn't been taking enough time. And I know in Australia there's all this like backlash to umpires who take forever. It's like when it's missing leg stump, why do you check RTS, check hotspot, rock and roll it, do all this crap? And so, but to me in this series, the umpires have been far too quick on the decision. There was not conclusive. So my last thought, I don't like soft signals. I think they're stupid. I think in this case, Pant was blocking the umpire's view. So there's no way they knew what happened. But on the field, they gave the soft signal out. So then the third umpire's decision is not, was it out or not? The decision was, do I have conclusive evidence to overturn the on-field decision? In the 8 seconds the umpire looked at it, I don't think he had it. In the 30, 40 minutes later, we kept rewatching and reanalyzing. I think it was the right call. There was too much doubt. It wasn't crystal clear. But at the moment, it just didn't feel like he had nearly enough to overturn the decision, and that's what I was upset about.
No, fair enough. And you tweeted that, and then you went to sleep, and I woke up, and I looked at all our tweets.
And you got all the hate?
Yeah, I was looking at all the awesome responses we got, which is fair. I mean, like, people thought it was out. And then I actually looked at the video, and genuinely, you cannot tell in that point. And I'm totally with you on this. And I know we've been called... We've actually got a response from Fake News on Twitter which says, totally loving the free fall of this podcast from a couple of friends talking about cricket to militant Indian cricket fan, which is just a great, great tweet. But objectively, I didn't think that there was enough to overturn this soft signal, which is, as you say, the rule, right? I remember we had an issue in Perth when Kohli was given out on the field, caught it slip, and it looked like it had actually hit the ground. But there wasn't conclusive evidence. The shortening of the long lens, it looks like things have hit the ground when sometimes they haven't, right? And when the finger's actually under the ball. So I totally understand where you're coming from. I totally understand the other side of it. But the question is, what was a soft signal? The rule is you've got to go with the soft signal if there's doubt, and that wasn't done. So very interesting event there. Varun, I'm going to ask you about Pant's keeping generally, right? Like, because the moment he dropped those catches, the knives came out for him saying, Saha should have played, Pant is a rubbish keeper. Look at it, he drops all these catches. Pant's dropped catch percentage has gone down to 81%, by the way, now, according to CricViz. His counterpart, Saha, is at 87% now. So there's a 6% delta between them. What did you make of all that chatter? Because when Pant drops catches, they say Saha should be the keeper for India. When Saha doesn't score runs, they say Pant should be the keeper batsman for India. What is going on with this whole selection drama?
I mean, I'm just happy to say that we have enough information for us to be able to say, drop this issue. For anyone who is continuing and persisting with it, please have some faith. Our boy, the second time we've said our boy, by the way, somebody asked us to keep count on Twitter, he's a special guy. He's 23. He's just turned 23 like 2 months ago. Have some faith. His keeping needs to improve. No doubt. None of us have ever justified his keeping. But again, with the way he batted in the second innings, and we're going to come to that, if he can improve his keeping by 15%, 20%, I mean, he's going to be one of the all-time greats like a Gilchrist, a Dhoni. So yes, his keeping needs to improve, but also please stop questioning whether this guy needs to play.
One sec. I have 2 questions. Did you just call Dhoni a Test all-time great?
No, I just said that generally Dhoni and Gilchrist are the all-time greats.
Indian all-time great.
I'm just saying
Indian
that to
Test all-time
DJ. I do think that Dhoni's an all-time great. No, I think the debate that started yesterday was, is he good enough to bat at 5 or 6? Like, do you just unencumber him as a gloveman, right? Like, do you want Rishabh Pant to become a Dhoni as wicketkeeper? And let's not forget, Dhoni did not start as a very good technical wicketkeeper. He ended as one. He became one, and he became maybe the best in the world, maybe the best, one of the best to have ever played the game. But he didn't start that way at age 18. A question for you, Varun, is does Pant just bat? Do you take away this hassle of him needing to be with the gloves, manage the field positioning, manage the slips, manage the sledging, manage the conversations, etc., and just let him bat?
No, because Saha has a damn liability in the batting lineup. So even if he takes that one extra catch per match, that's 30 runs. Pant is going to get you more than those 30 runs. I mean, yeah, this is going to trigger a lot of debate, but no, Pant should keep, Pant should bat, Pant should set the field, Pant should do everything, Pant should run for president.
The argument continues. Amazing, amazing. So anyway, so we finished at, Australia finished the first day at 166 for 2. So remember, this is a test match that's gone into 5 days. There was some time lost to rain, but not very much. It was made up later in the match by playing extra overs at the start in the first session every day. Let's talk about two more things, guys, in the first innings by Australia. One, Marnus Labuschagne scores 91. Steve Smith scores 100. I mean, what is up with these guys? They're firstly like batting clones of each other. They seem to love batting with each other. Like Marnus Labuschagne even copies, I almost feel he copies Steve Smith's weird mannerisms. He's so strange. And I mean, we'll come to what Warren and Simon said about him later. But I mean, are these two guys, they're in the top 5 test batsmen in the world at the moment. And Ashwin, Steve Smith was super pumped up after that 100. Why did it mean so much to him?
I mean, his last 4 scores were, 1, 0, 0, and 8 or something like that. And so that's not Steve Smith. You don't average 60, be one of the best batsmen in the world right now with single-digit scores. You just don't. So what was funny, I read, is at the end of the first innings of the test, he still had not made a double-digit score this series. It was 4 single-digit scores and then a triple. But I think it showed you what this team means to him. It shows you, and you don't get to the level. I mean, people talk about why Kohli reacts when he beats a milestone or when he wins a game. He unleashes. There's so much pent up energy, sort of similar to Smith. You don't get to this level by not having a ridiculous amount of passion and energy. Different people show it different ways. Pujara shows it by batting all day, and so I do think somebody like Pujara has that same level of energy. But for Smith, it just bubbled up and it came out, and kudos to him. It was a good knock. It took him the easiest batting pitch of the series to make the runs against us when 4 of our first choice bowlers were missing, but that's fine. I'll allow it.
Ouch. Anyway, I mean, he was so exuberant, he nearly fell over while celebrating his 100. But Varun, Steve Smith and Marnus Labuschagne, they were the difference in the first innings between the two teams, right? We didn't have a Kohli to play. And I mean, I think Labuschagne getting 91 and Steve Smith getting 100 turned out to be the difference in the first innings, right?
Yeah, and I mean, let's be honest, before the series started, we all talked about these two. We also spoke about Warner, but these two guys with a slightly reduced India bowling attack, it was always going to be the pain point. So even when we thought about it, we said, okay, if in one innings, only one of them clicks, it'll be a win for us. And it hadn't been happening for so long. Marnus, of course, had been playing better, but it just had to happen. I mean, I wasn't surprised by it. You had to have a situation where they're both going to hit 50s or 100s in the same innings. And that's exactly what happened. But we do have to call out that after Australia was 200 for 2, and Rahane said this as well, to pull them back and get them 338 all out on a wicket, which, mind you, for the last 5 tests, the first innings average has been 460 or 458. To get them 120 runs below par was a phenomenal achievement. So yes, Smith and Labuschagne had to perform. They were overdue, and I think India just knew. I mean, India was waiting for this to happen as well.
Ashwin, I'm going to come to you on the bowling tactics, both from the fast bowlers who bowled a lot at the stumps. So what did you make of that? That was fairly defensive in a way. But what it allowed us to do was to attack with the spinner. And I'm going to say spinner being Ravindra Jadeja, because while he may not have bowled his greatest spell ever, because there was some rubbish that he threw in from time to time, some pretty short stuff, but he picked up 4 wickets, and it was probably because of the pressure that was created by the quicks at the other end, bowling super tight lines and length, right?
Yeah, and I think that's the mark of a good high-quality test team, is being able to adjust your strategy, right? You could have consistently gone for that slightly outside off stump or hitting top of off stump line and tried to make them play at it. And I think, in hindsight, obviously it's easy to say this, but it worked. And I think the other thing you have to acknowledge is the strategy may have been totally different if you were playing Bumrah, Shami, and Ishant, right? Because much more experienced, much more tested at this level, much more consistent. And that's our Stark, Cummins, and Hazelwood, right? Those 3. And you're stuck. Bumrah at 18, 19 tests in is the most senior guy. I mean, Bumrah's younger than him, and he gave Saini his test cap. So everything is just wonky right now. And that's, kudos to him. I think Bumrah is phenomenal, but he's still young in the game. And so he did great. I thought he bowled very well, but I think the strategy to settle Siraj and Saini, hey, you're from conditions in India, you're more used to bowling directly at the body, bowling wicket to wicket. Do that, and we will adjust our strategy and get wickets with Jadeja, and that's phenomenal. That's very, very smart thinking, because in hindsight it worked. And let's acknowledge it was frustrating while watching it, but it worked.
Yeah, it wasn't the most attacking great cricket to watch, because we're used to seeing like edges flying to slip and like batsmen being bounced out and stuff. But this was just patience, which it was a different approach almost to Test cricket that India showed in this game. Varun, what did you make of Saini on debut? He bowled 13 overs, 2 for 65. But what did you make of his bowling in this first innings?
I think it was hard because it was hard on Saini because, he's pumped up to be playing his debut test. He wants to be running out there with the new ball. And, there was a stage where I think half the innings had passed and Saini had only bowled like 5 overs or something. So it was tough on him. It's almost as if...
You were asking, is Saini even playing?
Yeah, there was a point where I messaged you guys and said, is Saini on the field? Is he playing? Because he wasn't bowling and it almost felt like he was being used the same way that Australia uses Cameron Green, which is just to give your top 4 bowlers a rest. So you got to feel a little bit for Saini, but we've spoken about Saini that he's fast, but he needs to be much more of a thinking bowler rather than just pitching the ball. I was impressed with him, not enough for me to think that he should get a longer test run immediately. But yeah, he did well. He did well under the circumstances.
And Ashwin, I'm going to talk to you about a little passage of play when Matthew Wade came in to bat against Jadeja. And Hanuma Vihari was in at silly mid-on. And Wade was pulling out these sweep shots. And I think Vihari got hit like 3 times in pretty uncomfortable places. But he kept him in. And eventually, Wade came down the track. He clearly did not like that fielder there. And he plays that shot well, but he kept hitting the fielder. And then Jadeja picked up Wade. So do you think there was a contribution by a fielder putting his body on the line and kind of getting into the batsman's mind almost there? Because I really enjoyed that passage of play. I was just like, aggression comes in so many different forms. And here we're seeing Vihari saying, I'm going to stay in there. I'm going to put my body on the line. It was just great cricket for me.
Yeah, it was phenomenal. And that's the thing with Test cricket, where you have to watch enough of it to start to understand and be able to appreciate this kind of nuance. But yeah, you could tell at one point Matthew Wade was just trying to hit the shot to hit it directly at Vihari to signal to Rahane, get this fielder out of there. And exactly as you said, there was aggression. Vihari stayed in there. He just frustrated Wade. He got in his head. Wade was starting to overthink it, and that led to the wicket. So absolutely phenomenal. It's just one of those things where in hindsight in the match, like if you just look at a scorecard next month or 5 years later or 10 years later, that will never show up. But when you were there, when you were watching it, you realized the importance of the field positioning and the captaincy and the strategic thinking, but also of the fielder himself, putting himself on the line. And it was pretty funny that Matthew Wade, of course, stands at short leg himself. And so later on, Indians had the opportunity to exact just a little bit of revenge by smacking the ball directly at him.
And Matthew Wade is a bit of a clown. And DJ, as you talk about Tim Paine in the 4th innings, I read a great tweet that said that it takes a lot for Tim Paine to be looking more like a clown when you've got Matthew Wade in the same team.
Wade and Labuschagne, they're both the closest fielders. They're both nonsensical characters. Yeah,
I mean, they're just asking Gill, who's your favorite player? And yeah, that was hilarious. Like just talking.
Think of like is that better though? That's not a bad thing, because who has been our short leg fielders over the years? It's been Dravids and Lakshmans and the guys who won't say anything or who be the most like.
And Vihari now.
And Vihari, who doesn't say a word. Maybe it's better to put your nonsense guys at anyway. That's a different decision.
Maybe Pant can give up the gloves and he can be a short leg.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
No. You brought up Labuschagne at short leg, right? And interesting that, of course, Wade has got his own irritations, but it seems like Manas Labuschagne even irritates the Australian commentators, who are usually so gung-ho about the Australian team. It's impossible to listen to them. It's like there is only one team on the ground. I just find it shocking the way that those commentators go on. But anyway, Shane Warne and Andrew Simons were caught on camera saying that this guy's got ADD, we're going to like jump on him and squeeze his guts out of his ass and all sorts of random stuff. And Shane Warne was just like, why can't he just bat properly? What is this no-run stuff and all? So, I mean, do you think he also irritates Australians with his mannerisms? Is he actually like that? Is he putting it on to try and be more like Smith? Varun, what is up with Manas Labuschagne?
Yeah, so firstly, I want to say, I guess the lesson for me was Aussies on the camera and Aussies off the camera are probably different, right? This is the only instance we've seen or heard of that. And you're right, for them to be dissing their own player was extremely surprising. I think the issue with Labuschagne is he just tries so hard to copy Steve Smith. Like, even the three of us, we don't particularly like the Aussie cricket team, but we're willing to accept Steve Smith is strange and leave it at that. But when Marnus does it, it's like, why are you doing this? I personally feel he's coming across a bit arrogant, generally, in his demeanor. And secondly, when you're copying Steve Smith on the field with your mannerisms and the no run and shouting, and it's just irritating, right? So it's like, maybe Ashwin will understand this, but it's like the younger brother who just copies the older brother for the sake of it. That's like, it's, you never say anything about to the older brother, right?
Ashwin, do you want to react to that?
Yeah, I think and it's true. Any younger siblings copy their older brother, but it's like you copy what you order at a restaurant, not the number one and number two batsmen in the world copying mannerisms and yelling "no run" for every ball. Like when Marnus yelled "no run" when he left the ball, I just died. Like that was the epitome of it. It's like, of course you're not running. You left the ball through to the keeper.
I mean, there's hero worship and then there's that, man. I'm just like, is it actually coming from inside? I mean, you can even see his teammates don't take him seriously. Like he's running in from short leg. He's saying, Gary, here, Gary. And like Nathan Lyon just chucks it to the wicket keeper. So, I mean, even they don't take him seriously. But I mean, it was pretty shocking to see Shane Warne and Andrew Simons just go after this guy. I don't think they knew they were on camera, but we'll put a link to that in the show notes. Anyway, guys, so we've just about finished the first innings of the Australian team, so that's great. Moving on to the Indian first innings. Man, let's talk through this. Gill and Rohit. Varun, is this a pairing for a really long time in Indian Test cricket? Because I think it was the first time in this decade that we had a partnership of more than 50 in both innings.
Yeah, and I think they played the first time since 2010, I believe, or around that time when Sehwag and Gambhir played out 20 overs overseas. So it's the first time in a decade. Now, that speaks to a lot. I think we all have Murli Vijay to blame for that stat. But in the meantime, I think I would just want to say one thing about both Rohit and Gill. Firstly, Gill looked like he was in complete control. And I think, he just belongs at a Test international level. Now, hopefully India continues to play him opening, but the kind of control that he demonstrated in the last two tests, and especially this one, I feel like he could bat anywhere. So India needs to keep playing Gill, hopefully opening. The second thing is Rohit Sharma. Now, I'm not going to talk about control because we're talking about a guy who is a limited overs legend. Like, to me, Rohit Sharma is just number 2 to Kohli. He just looked comfortable. He got off a quarantine. He got past that whole bio bubble, hazard issue. And he just came in and just was stroking the ball, was defending it, was driving, was pulling. And he looked just very comfortable. So to me, it was fantastic because these two guys, it's not just about the runs they gave India. It's just about how much in control they were.
Absolutely. Ashwin, Rohit looked fairly fit, surprisingly, after his quarantine. And it just looked like it was so easy while those two guys were out there batting, right? They put on 70 odd. How disappointed were you when Rohit got out, man? I mean, it seemed like a bit of a loose shot, unnecessary, while he had the bowling basically absolutely at his mercy, right?
Yeah, I mean,
this is the first innings, not even the second innings.
Yeah. So two things really quickly on this one. One, Rohit and Gill, there's some batsmen who we all use the cliche, but it looks like they have an extra half a second or 1 second when the ball is coming to them. It just looks like they have that extra timing because of the natural talent. And both these guys have that. And so it's rare, I think, to have both pairs of openers have that natural instinct or that natural ability to just get that extra second to hit. So that's why it was so great to watch. I've said before, I think, on this show that I think Rohit is clearly talented. He's clearly gifted. He's clearly very skilled. I think what he needed to be a better Test player was more mental conditioning, more of some sort of a mental conditioning coach, if you will. And it feels like he's got that because his approach, his attitude looked very different, looked very strong. So I don't know what he did for the 2 weeks in quarantine. It sounds like he, was working on his approach to the game, and it was great to see. I mean, it's never going to be perfect, right? He chipped it back to Hazelwood. It wasn't ideal. He was looking good, but the right step and the right progress for the future.
Absolutely, and I mean we got off to a great start, but then Rohit went, then Gill went, Rahane came in. We kind of shut up shop for 10 overs, right? Which is fair. I mean, you're playing for stumps. There were a few close calls and stuff. Fine, fair on. Move on. Let's talk through the approach that we saw from Pujara in the first innings. He scored 50, so joint top scorer with Gill. But it was his slowest innings. He scored it on 176 balls. Varun, what happened to Pujara? Did he lose his tempo? Was this something that we say it's his method, right? But did it put a lot of pressure on other batsmen? Because there's been a lot of criticism. There's the intent mongers who've come out and said you've handed the initiative back to Australia and all of that stuff. So what happened with the first innings Pujara 50?
I think, I was trying very hard to not say this is his method, and you mentioned that. And it's difficult, right? Because we read a stat today that said, I think between the 2018 and the 2020 series, the two test series that have gone on, there have been, 7,250 balls that were bowled to India. And 1,881 of those balls have been faced by Pujara. And that's 1 in every 4 balls. So, to me, I think anyone who's jaw dropped at this innings, I'm like, what is wrong with you? You know this is the way he played. If you say, did he play a little bit slower than usual? Yes, I think he did. I wish he had upped the tempo. But I also want to say, I think the pitch was not as simple as it looked for us on TV. And let's put it this way as well. This is the best bowling attack in the world. So, we when we were watching Amazon's The Test, there was an episode about Pujara at the Sydney Cricket Ground. And you can hear Justin Langer, and they're saying that he's just tiring the bowlers out. He can spend a whole day without scoring runs. There was a beautiful moment in that where they just stopped kind of everything else in that and just showed a clock ticking and Pujara defending. So what happened to understanding that, it's a 5-day game. Most games that we're playing are not going to 5 days. Pujara after 50 scores much faster. So I just think, look, people need to get off his back a little bit, especially all your Australian ex-cricketers who have said Pujara has handed Australia the match with his slow batting. It didn't happen, right? So for all of you great kind of commentators out there who've said that, Pujara's lost you the match. Well, he didn't. The end result was a draw. It went to the 5th day. And the fact that Pujara took longer to bat probably made sure that India could draw the game. So I'm saying all this, I'm very passionate about it. But if you ask me, yes, I think all of us would like him to score a little bit faster. But let's not blame him for that. That's from the perspective of a spectator who is sitting and watching 8 hours of Test cricket. From the game's perspective, I think he was fine.
Really well said. Really, really well said. I don't think I have got very much to add to that. Ashwin, do you have any further thoughts on Pujara's method, his innings in the first test? The pressure it puts on other batsmen around him, perhaps it doesn't look so stark because you have a Kohli here. He had a Vihari batting with him, and a Rahane batting with him. So maybe it looked like it was harder, but he would have probably got away with it if there was a Kohli or a Rishabh Pant batting with him, which happened in the second innings, right?
Yeah, I think anybody who reacted, and I've said this during the day before we drew the match, by the way, I was saying this, anybody who reacted harshly to Pujara is very short-sighted. Varun has said before, we want to have at least one, sometimes 2 attacking players in our top 7, right? At the start of the series, Shaw got the nod, then Pant got it, etc. Now Pant, Rohit can both score quickly. So you have the guys who are going to score quickly. This is Pujara's forte. This is his role. This is his job. Nobody today, I think, puts a higher price on their wicket than Pujara. Both innings, even in this match, the balls he got out to were absolute jaffers, like just beautiful quick bowling deliveries. And so that's what he forces the best bowlers in the world to do, is to bowl over and over and over again. And eventually they have to bring their absolute best to get him out. So I echo exactly what Varun said. He's put it well. I think, maybe the difference is when he hits it when you're that kind of a batsman, you have to be more comfortable. When you hit it kind of a little bit into a gap, you got to take the single. I would like to see Pujara take the occasional single more. That's the difference. I don't think I want him to hit 4s and 6s. And by the way, if you're the captain of one of the top 3 test sides in the world in Rahane, and you felt pressured to go for a wild shot because your counterpart was batting slowly, that's Rahane's fault. I don't blame Pujara for a second. I think with 2.5 days in a test to go, exactly to your point, when matches have not been going to 5 days, if you're feeling pressure because the scoreboard isn't moving, that's not the other guy's fault. This is what he does. This is what he's in the team for. And this is why we love him.
So I think we can summarize that as Pooji Bhag, Ben Stokes, right?
Yeah, pretty
Take the
much, right?
singles.
The single. You want the singles.
And talking of singles, of course, the next wicket to fall was Hanuma Vihari, who hit it to Hazelwood at mid-off and took off for a single. He was already halfway down the track. I mean, that was one of the most extraordinary pieces of fielding I've seen from a fast bowler, man. He just went down, picked it up, hit the stumps. Vihari was caught short. It was one of the best pieces of fielding I've seen. Plus, it was the first of 3 runouts that India had. Now, remember, India had Kohli run out in the first test at Adelaide, top 5 batter. They had Rahane run out in the second test match at Boxing Day, again in the first innings after he scored 100. And now you've given away the advantage by having another top 5 batter run out in the form of Vihari. So, I mean, very, very unfortunate and something that probably needs to be looked at. We need a running coach, if nothing else. But then came in our boy Rishabh Pant batting at 6, kind of really changed the dynamic of the game, right? Again, Pujara was blocking away at one end. Pant comes out, scores 36 of 67, looking fairly fluent. And again, it was a short innings that brought the momentum a little bit back in India's favour. But then, I mean, the rest of it, Ashwin, you already talked about Pujara getting out to a Jaffa, but I mean, the rest of it is just like makes for pretty bad reading. Pant got hit, Jadeja hit a few, but then got hit and he got his thumb dislocated. Bumrah didn't get any. Again, he was run out. Ashwin didn't get any. He was run out. And I mean, we just collapsed 6 for 49. So that was really, really disappointing, right? Varun, anything to add to that?
No, I wanted to ask you, DJ, because as a batsman, we talked about India's injuries, but do you feel like they were kind of self-inflicted? Because at the end of the day, Rishabh Pant got hit on the elbow pulling a ball that he missed. Jadeja got hit on his thumb while trying to defend a short ball. So you can't really say these are external injuries. You can't kind of say that, you pulled it while running or you slipped on your ankle. So I can understand Shami getting hit by a fast bowler on his elbow or his arm, but Pant and Jadeja, do you think it was just kind of like bad technique?
So, I mean, you have to remember that these are some of the quickest bowlers in the world. Like Mitchell Stark is really fast. So is Pat Cummins. So is Hazelwood. They're quick bowlers. And I mean, the pitch wasn't playing that well. I think it was a little bit up and down. So these guys, if there was more bounce, they would have probably gone underneath it. I wouldn't say that it was bad technique because, I mean, when you look at it in slow-mo, even when Rahane is defending, sometimes you see how the bat handle moves when it hits the bat handle, right? That's the amount of force that is going into that ball. So, I mean, it was unlucky. For Pant, actually, I would say, why not wear an arm guard, dude?
Yeah.
I mean, you can see Pujara wearing an arm guard. You've seen Shami break his arm in the series. But Pant came out in the second innings without an arm guard as well. And I was like, dude, what is wrong with you? But I mean, that's just the way he plays. Maybe he feels comfortable like that. Jadeja, to be fair, I didn't realize how bad it was. Like he even hit a great pull shot after that, right? And but for your thumb to be dislocated, the ball has to hit it at a really odd angle. He's out for 6 weeks in the first 2 England tests, right? So I wouldn't say it's bad technique. Anyone can get hit. Nasir Hussain had popped fingers. Like Graeme Smith has broken his fingers multiple times. I think even maybe Rahul Dravid has played with a broken finger from time to time. So I wouldn't say it's bad. I wouldn't say it's bad technique, but just unlucky and good bowling, man. The Australians went for the body and bloody well they got it.
Yeah.
Anyway, guys, the 6 for 49, that was disappointing, eh? What did you make of that collapse, Ashwin? And do we have a problem with the lower order? Because everybody seems to score runs against us, but why can we never score runs against them?
Yeah, we mostly do have a problem with the lower order. I think 6 for 49 was disappointing, but probably not entirely unexpected. I don't have the stats, but I know that by the time the 5th wicket falls, or absolutely the 6th wicket falls for India, this is all pre-second innings, we're all expecting that the collapse will happen. I know people who in the second innings, when the 5th wicket fell, pretty much shut it off because they said this is not, like Ashwin hasn't batted well at all in the last few years, which I was so glad to see him turn around. But yeah, the 6 for 49 was not at all surprising. I think there needs to be some sort of an intervention at some point. And I'm not expecting your number 11 to do well. But you can't have 3 number 11s in the side where teams are batting, have people who can at least grind it out till number 8, sometimes even number 9, and give the other guys support. So disappointing and something hopefully they'll work on.
Varun, how do we solve this lower order problem, man? Or like the long tail issue, which has gone on for a really long time. Our bowlers are great, but they can't bat. So, Is this a practice thing? Is it, do you need different personnel? What is it? Because none of them can bat.
Yeah, I think it's a practice thing, and I mean, don't want to spend too much time on this, but the way Ishant Sharma transformed his batting over a few years, I think it was just determination, practice, and today when Ishant Sharma comes out, if he was batting with Jadeja in this match, you wouldn't have thought the game is over. You would have known that you have confidence that he can block the ball, and Jadeja can continue to score. So these guys are also new. Shami can't bat to save his life, so let's take him out of that equation. But Saini, Siraj, these guys have never played Test cricket, so it's not easy for them. It'll come with time. Let's just hope it doesn't take as long as Ishant Sharma.
Yeah, and the 195 for 4 collapse was really it was really disappointing, because at a stage we were looking like we would get within within touching distance of the 300 and 330 odd that Australia had put together. Anyway, we gave up a 93-run lead. Jadeja swiped a few at the end to bring down that deficit, but not much to talk about in the Australian second innings in terms of the cricket itself. Again, India dropped a few catches, Hanuma Vihari being the culprit on the second ball of the fourth day, which was really gutting. I was watching it and I think I hurt myself hitting my kitchen counter, because I was just like, that's the second ball of the day. He could have that would have made such a different dynamic. Again, unlucky. But the big talking point, guys, on the end of day 3 and day 4, right? And it's Sydney, it's Australia. Last time we had Show Us Your Visa at the Melbourne Cricket Ground. This time we've got new Indian fast bowler Siraj and Bumrah being subject, allegedly, to racial abuse in the stands. Now, Kohli tweeted about it. Ashwin said this is nothing new. We've experienced it in every game we've played at Sydney. Varun, I'm going to come to you on this. You've actually watched cricket in Australia. I haven't. I don't know whether Ashwin has, but it's some place I always wanted to go. I know Ashwin is now shaking his head, but it's a place I've always wanted to go to watch a Boxing Day test match or a game at the SCG. It's an iconic place to watch cricket. So my first question was, if the players are allegedly getting racially abused, how would Indian spectators be treated in the stands? So you've watched cricket there. What did you make of an experience of watching cricket in Australia?
Yeah, so I wanted to just say 2 points there. One is, before we get into the actual watching of the game, when I was in university in 2005, we actually went down as a university team to Perth for a cricket tournament, a university level cricket tournament where people from all over different parts of the world came. And we were staying at a particular dorm or a hostel and playing, we had to play 3 or 4 matches. And one day we were just sitting by the side of the road, all the boys from our team just chatting, and we had cars drive past us. The cars actually hurled racial abuses to us. And DJ, I don't know if I ever shared this with you, but this actually happened. And so we were just in shock. A bunch of 19-year-old boys. I remember telling my dad, and he actually kept calling me because, a bunch of 20, 19-year-old boys, like 20 as in the number 20, we were all in a group, and it's easy for us to get fired up and stuff like that. So we had faced it ourselves. No, I'm not comparing myself to the cricketers, but I'm just saying that we had faced it. So it's not something that's new. We were all in shock at that point. So for us to then see 15 years later in Sydney, which I would assume is a much more metropolitan place, for this to continue to happen, it was absolutely shocking. I think it's great that Siraj stopped the play on day 4, pointed to the crowd, the cops got involved, they asked people to leave the stand. So I think that was great. But you talk about it from 2 perspectives. One is the incident happening, and the second is the treatment of those people, and the Aussie team, the captain, the coach, everyone did the right thing, right? So nothing to discuss there. But the fact that it happened is just sad, and it's different when it's done in jest. It's different when you're saying things like you're a terrorist and other racial abuses. So I think it was extremely poor. I'm glad Siraj called them out. But to end this on a more positive note, I have been to Australia. I've been to the Adelaide Oval. I have been to the MCG. And I have to say those were some of the best cricketing experiences of my life. So for both
were you watching India play Australia though in these grounds? Or were you watching a World Cup match, which was not?
I was watching I was not watching an India-Australia game, but I mean, we know enough people in Sydney. We know enough Indians in Sydney. I'm saying this also from a selfish perspective, because in 2022, I want both of you to come to Sydney and Melbourne to watch the World Cup. It's not that bad. It's a handful of individuals who can spoil the entire experience and spoil the name of stadiums of a nation. But yeah, we just have to hope this doesn't happen again.
Absolutely. And Ashwin, I mean, it's obviously a few bad apples. It's not a country that is bad or a civilization that is bad or an entire ground that is bad. It just cannot be. It's a few idiots in the crowd that probably had too much to drink or have sat in the sun for too long and decide that, hey, I've got the chance to watch cricket during COVID times live at the stadium. What should I do? The best thing I should do is sit there and scream abuse, even if it was not racial, and we don't know whether it's been proved or not. But all you're doing is screaming abuse or baiting a cricketer who's there, given up being with his family and his father who's passed away to actually entertain you. I mean, Siraj has actually not got back home to do his father's last rites to be able to play cricket in Australia. And this is the treatment that you're getting. I mean, it's not, it goes beyond banter, right? There's a great video by Mel Farrell and Bharat Sundaresan who actually, they go into the subtle racism and he got called an Uber Eats guy while he was waiting outside his own building, right? Just because he's brown. So it's really sad to see that. And I thought it was super brave of Siraj to come out and stop play. Bumrah has obviously backed him up. The Indian team has obviously backed him up. But Ashwin, is Australia the most toxic place to play cricket in some ways? You've got the media on your back. Obviously, the cricketers are great. The pitches are hard. Does this all contribute to making Australia the toughest place to play cricket in the entire world?
Yeah, it probably does. And I think I just want to distinguish a couple of things, right? I think the Aussies will say we fight hard, the whole play hard, play fair kind of movements, etc. I think this is going to sound like a cliche, but there's a line and they want to push as close to the line as possible. So I want to separate out what you said, by the way. When Siraj is feeling at the boundary, part of the game is for fans to chirp, to talk. And by the way, let's be transparent and honest about it. The three of us have been at an India-Pakistan game where Mohammad Amir was at the boundary and we were chirping him. Chirping is part of the game.
But we were not like, there was no racial stuff to it.
So that's what I'm getting to, right? I'm saying, so I want to be careful when you say the fans should have been nicer because they got to watch cricket and his Siraj stayed to play for his country in quarantine, etc. I don't expect that the fans are going to be nice and gracious, etc. There is 0 point, though, where it becomes allowable for a fan to abuse, right? Whether it's racially, whether it's anything overly personal, whether it's, there's line that you cannot cross. I think the same exact thing, by the way, is true for the Aussie cricketers, right? So you can get into all this, but Marnus I'm all for Marnus and Tim Payne in the fourth innings chirping Ashwin because Ashwin was batting them out of the match. When they're still talking as Lyon is doing his run-up, that's not okay. Ashwin backed away a couple times. Kudos to him, right thing to do, right? So it's fine for them to chirp at each other, talk to each other, try to get in their head. But during the drinks break, when Steve Smith erases Rishabh Pant's guard that he had taken, just to be stupid, those things are crossing a line and getting unacceptable. So I'm all for pushing the line, DJ. I don't think fans who are at the game chirping at cricketers, talking to cricketers, maybe even trying to distract them when the ball might be coming their way, all those things, that's part of the game. You cannot cross the line. You cannot do anything. It's 2021. Come on, guys. As a country, what are you guys doing? Like, maybe I live in the US where the summer has seen an absolute explosion of discussion about Black Lives Matter and race in the game. And every NBA game, every player takes a knee before they start. And by the way, in the Big Bash, I think they do that too, right? So the conversations are happening. And then these moronic group of fans is sitting in the stand engaging in racial abuse. It's just not okay. Cricket Australia needs to do better. The Sydney Cricket Ground needs to do better. The Australian cricket team, the 11 guys on the field need to do better, and they need to push their fans to do better. That's it.
Absolutely. And I mean, my first thought was, don't these guys have a parliament building to storm or something in their spare time? I mean, why are you sitting there and hurling racial abuse? But Varun, what is the solution to this? Is it if the perpetrators aren't caught and punished that the ground loses the right to host cricket? Because I tweeted that out and there was some strong reaction to that saying it's an overreaction, that you should just punish them and then fine them and stuff. But I think unless you lose the privilege to host cricket in your city because it is earned infamous name of being racial in the crowds, I think that would be a fitting punishment for a ground which has got it may be Indian grounds as well, because we have our own problems, right? So I think there needs to be a zero tolerance policy. You've seen Jofra Archer getting racially abused. You've seen issues in South Africa. You've seen Sarfaraz talking rubbish on the stump mic as well. So I think there has to be a zero tolerance policy. Cricket is starting to have a racism problem like football does, right? And that needs to be nipped in the bud. Genuinely, it just needs to end very, very quickly. Varun?
Yeah, no, I think DJ, I don't know the answer to this one. I think it does feel a little harsh to ban the ground because of something the spectators are saying, which they have no ability to control. But I also do see your point, which is that, if you're not able to dish out that harsh punishment, if this happens over and over again, maybe the best thing to do is to take away cricket from the public of that city, and for a period of time, and then hopefully have it solve after that. So yeah, I don't know the answer.
It's almost like a poor pitch problem, right? Like if your pitch isn't up to the mark, you take away cricket from that place for a little while. And I mean, it would encourage neighbors to report their racist neighbors. It would encourage ground staff to take swift action against this sort of stuff, and would make sure that the game isn't stopped. I mean, it was ridiculous scenes what was going on for Siraj to have to come in and point out those idiots in the crowd. Hopefully we never see scenes like that again. And I know it was all allegedly done, but for Siraj to actually stop a game in the middle, like Bumrah was running into ball, it's just shocking. Anyway, guys, all of that apart, that was a pretty down argument and a down chat. But the Indian chase, right? Cameron Green got 84. Again, Smith got runs, Manas got runs. The India chase, right? We start off, you've got Gill and Rohit coming out. What were your thoughts at the start of that innings, Ashwin? What was your best case scenario at the start of that innings?
My totally honest answer was, let's not lose by too much. I didn't think we could last 4 sessions. Be honest, and I love this team, and I'm a big fan, obviously. But lasting 4 sessions against an attack with Stark, Cummins, Hazelwood, and Lyon, with the kind of batting we've been putting up, and we batted well in the first innings, etc. But lasting 4 sessions or making 407 runs in the fourth innings of a test, I didn't think we had a shot. So pre-innings, I was just saying, let's not get dismissed by lunch on day 5 for 100, 110, 120 all out and lose this match by 300 runs. That was my thought.
Varun, I think I'm totally with Ashwin on this one. I was like, minimize the damage and let's go to Brisbane and try and retain the Border Gavaskar trophy by squaring it. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I was just praying that we get to second session on the last day. That was it. That was, I wasn't thinking so much of how much we lose by, but I was just saying that let's get through lunch, and somewhere between lunch and tea, if we can hold the game to there, I would think that's decent.
Can I just put this in context? 2 games ago, we were bowled out for 36. That's absurd. Just think about it. Yep. 2 games ago, we bowled out for 36. Anyway, Gill and Rohit, I mean, they went off. They batted beautifully. Gill got out. I mean, it was a good ball again. There was not much he could do about it. He was probably a little bit ahead of himself, in front of him. Edged it to the keeper, used up a review as well. And then Rohit, he was looking imperious form, pulling it everywhere, just driving it. He looked the part, man. And all I was thinking, I was like, I wish we just had Kohli in this lineup somehow. That's all I was like, imagine Rohit, then Kohli coming in after that, at 4.
Yeah, and that's why if you just, if Rohit had just somehow got to the day 5, right, I think it could have been a very different test match.
Oh yeah, I mean, now we're going into win territory, but I mean, Rohit got out.
Let's not get into that.
Rohit got out. The ball was pretty poor. I think the shot was on. I think he probably just didn't pick the fielder in the shadows, right? And he absolutely smacked it straight down. Mitchell Stark took a good catch. Pat Cummins rewarded for otherwise bowling very well.
I do want to say I think Pat Cummins is bowling on a different planet, man. Man. He's so good. Even Ashwin, when he walked off the pitch, just said, yeah, it was tough to bat on, but Pat Cummins was just bowling on another planet. He didn't bowl a single short ball to Rohit Sharma. And the only short ball he bowled, he got him and he set him up. I don't know what this guy is bowling. And it's great that he's the number 1 test bowler right now.
Yeah, he's absolutely brilliant. I mean, he can bat as well. He can field as well. We remember the Adelaide run out of Pujara, right? So, I mean, we talked about Hazelwood, but just a complete cricketer, just brilliant to watch him. And he took those wickets. And, I mean, at 98 for 2, I mean, it wasn't a bad start, but at that stage, I think you're looking at being bowled out between lunch and tea, right? If I'm completely honest, you're like, we'll probably manage the first session, but then you know how wickets fall, and then we had two players injured. Pant, we didn't know how he was feeling, and then we also didn't know how Jadeja was going to bat, because I think they said he would bat if required, which my image, and I think a lot of the commentators kept referring to Graeme Smith coming out with one hand and batting at the SCG, which was also here, right? And to my image, I was just thinking of Jadeja doing that and blocking out the test match. But 98 for 2, Rahane and Pujara at the crease. Pujara, again, blocking away. Rahane goes very early on day 5, right? But in the meantime, I've put out a poll on Twitter. I've asked, when are we going to be bowled out? When are we going to, what's going to happen? The overwhelming winner there is that we're going to hold out for a miracle draw. 37% vote for that. Getting inspired by that, I said Hanuma Vihari is going to save the test match. And that tweet has gone a bit viral. And I'll tell you what the thought process behind that is, right? This guy has thrown it short leg. He's been hit continuously. He's been run out to a brilliant piece of fielding by Hazelwood. I mean, it's really unlucky. He hasn't done brilliantly in the first innings. He's dropped a catch in the second inning, that second ball catch. And I was just like, man, for all that this guy has put in to cricket owes him. It was just, that was the only thing that I was thinking. I was like, you know what? This is life. This is cricket. Cricket owes this guy something. Which is when I typed out that tweet and I'm like, save this tweet. Hanuma Vihari is going to bat it out for a famous draw, right? And I forgot about it. Anyway, we then lose Rahane. In a very interesting move, we send out Rishabh Pant at 5. Ashwin, let's talk about Rishabh Pant at 5. What did you make of that move? And I'm going to then come to Varun to talk about his innings.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think that the choice when you have Pujara at the crease was, if you send Vihari, they're going to start batting out for a draw. And by the way, I think if we had lost Rahane a little later, the decision may have been different. When we lost Rahane early, the choice was, if you have Vihari go in, they're going to have to bat almost 90 overs out for a draw. By sending Pant in, you did a couple things. One is you enabled him, empowered him to play his free-flowing game. 2 is you gave them a righty-lefty combination. And 3 is you basically said, okay, let's let Pant bat as much as he can. And then you have Vihari theoretically come in and with Pujara try to bat out whatever's left for a draw. So I don't know the exact thinking. That's just my assumptions there. Obviously, in hindsight, it worked, but a really interesting decision to send with Pujara on one end, to send Pant on the other. Maybe that's the discussion we were having in the first innings, right? When Pujara is batting slowly, Rahane felt pressured to bat faster. So by sending in Pant naturally bats quick. He's has the second fastest strike rate after Virender Sehwag. I think Sehwag struck at 82 odd, and Pant was like the 68, 69, 70 runs per 100 balls before this test match, right? So a very interesting strategy. I think, the lefty-righty thing worked, and the two completely contrasting batsmen where Pujara is just going to block everything and Pant's going to go for everything was pretty fascinating to see. But let's remember, Pant was 5 off his first 34 balls. So that was a little nerve-wracking for me. And so when you look at that, that's where it gets nerve-wracking, where I was saying, did they send Pant out to block? And then we realized, okay, that was just him getting his eye in, and then he ended up unleashing.
Varun, talk me through that unleashing. How satisfying was that?
It was amazing. I'm going to talk through that, but I'm also going to say, I don't know if this makes sense or not, but I feel like with the older ball and, them knowing that Lyon is going to be bowling a bulk of the overs, I don't know if it had something to do with the impact on his elbow. And whether playing that versus playing the new ball with all quicks might be slightly easier. So obviously there was a strategic element to it. Obviously there was a left-right combination. But I also do feel that somewhere impact to the elbow was a little bit of a factor. And how great was he, DJ? After 5 of 34 balls, he was amazing. Like, he just...
How mad was he? Hitting it over those fielders on the boundary. Completely crazy.
I mean, I was just sitting with my mouth open that whole time saying, what are you doing? We're playing to draw this game. We are not playing to win this game. Why is this so difficult to understand? And he was just magnificent. He was just being himself. I mean, honestly, I have to say this, that I felt like that was more exciting than me watching Andre Russell hitting sixes in an IPL. Like that Pant in the 5th day of the Sydney Test was much more exciting for me. He batted freely. I think the whole yin and yang thing was just poetic, right? Because on the other end, you've got a guy who's got this perfect defense, old school, back behind the pad kind of defense. And then you've got Pant who's, tumbling all over, hitting sixes, hitting boundaries. And I don't think I've ever seen these two guys bat before, but it was just beautiful for me.
Ashwin, do you feel vindicated after backing Pant for all these years? It feels like a really long time we've been backing our guy.
I feel like you should ask me that question first.
I mean, we know your answer is, of course, you feel vindicated. That's why he asked.
No, but he also oscillates. Varun, to be fair, also oscillates. He's like, oh, you need to drop him. He needs to go.
But that's because I'm doing reverse.
Like, yes.
I'm doing reverse jinx, dude.
Acha.
Sure. Just to quickly answer your question, you're just so happy for the guy, right? Sometimes we lose sight of the fact that he's 23. He's a natural striker of the ball. Yes, he's gonna come out to the bat at the Gabba and make a duck, or it's gonna happen. That's fine. You have to empower a player to play his game. He is just naturally gifted. He's naturally talented. Coach him in the back end. Get him actual technical coaching. Get him mental conditioning support. Get him all the resources he needs, because this kid is special. And I put the disclaimer out there because I know he's going to fail the next innings. Nobody except maybe Don Bradman batted as consistently as we would like as fans, right? Not even Sachin, who's an all-time great. He had failures. And so Rishabh Pant is going to fail. But when he comes off and essentially saves a match for us like he did today, it's just magnificent.
Absolutely spectacular. But I mean, we are the Rishabh Pant show, but I think we have changed our name on Twitter actually. And the reason for that is when I did put out that tweet, someone said, if Vihari does it, will you change your name for a week? And I said 100%. If Hanuma Vihari saves us this test match, we will be called the Hanuma Vihari show. Varun, that innings by Hanuma Vihari, we lost Pant. We lost Pujara eventually, right? Pant went for 97, absolutely gut-wrenching. Really feel bad for the guy for not getting 100. But, there was still a job to be done. When Pujara went and Pant went, there were 40 overs left. In comes Ashwin with Hanuma Vihari. Ashwin's tweaked his back in the nets, apparently. We found out later from his wife, who tweeted saying this guy could not even bend down to tie his shoelaces. Hanuma Vihari is torn his hamstring. India still the walking wounded. We have literally, as you guys said, and I think Ashwin said as well, we're just going to call out whoever's ready to play and they walk into the 11 at the Gabba. There isn't actually a debate around that anymore because we just don't have the players and there's a quarantine. So we can't just import players from India, right? The monumental effort that has gone into batting 40 overs against that attack. Varun, is this the greatest draw test match that we have seen in our lifetime?
I want to say yes. I also want to say yes because my memory is weak. But I have to say yes. 266 or 265 balls to play when Ashwin walks in there. Jadeja, most probably not going to be able to bat. Even if he comes out to bat, I don't think he would have done anything with a dislocated thumb. As Harsha Bhogle put it, when these guys were batting, there was one proper batsman, one hamstring, and one hand, right? And the proper batsman in that was Ravichandran Ashwin. So the way he said that kind of just summed it up for me. I think it just showed the mental determination of these guys to keep batting, to save the game. I think, with a hamstring, I got a lot of messages. And to be fair to everyone who sent me those messages, the average person just switches on the TV once in a while and watches. And so when they see Vihari at 6 runs of 100 balls, I was getting all sorts of hate messages for him. Did you have to explain to people that he's not able to walk, right? He's hitting the ball in the gaps where he's being able to, technically fit batsmen should be able to take 3 on that. He was not even being able to walk halfway down the pitch for a single. So I think given the entire circumstances of the batsman to follow, Jaddu, the way the innings had progressed so far, I think, the Hanuma Vihari show is just the right name for the next 1 week for us.
Absolutely right. Ashwin, let's talk through the Tim Payne drama. Is that 4 catches, 3 catches? How many catches went down on the last day?
I think officially 4, but 1 went off his pad and ballooned up. So officially 3, excuse me. That 1 extra one went off his pad. So some people are saying 4, but it's still too many, right?
But we're counting it, right? We're counting it.
Yeah, sure.
So the temporary captain, DRS champ, and stand-in keeper by the looks of it. Was it just his frustration boiling over and that mask of niceness being removed in that last innings?
And yeah, I think that's what's scary to me, is that everybody said Tim Payne is such a good guy, such a great bloke, nice guy. When push came to shove, and I think somebody said this on Twitter, it's like your real personality comes out when you're under the gun, right? When you're in a crisis, when you're under pressure, that's when your real personality comes out. And I'm sorry to say it, but an ugly side of Tim Payne came out. It was not fun. It was not nice to see. It was not healthy competition. He was being a complete ass on the field. And to an extent, I guess, when somebody like a Smith is being bad on the field, he backs it up with his bat. He backs it up with his performances. Tim Payne has not done anything of note really with the bat for Australia in his career. Yeah, he's done fine and he's gotten better over the years, but he's not in the side for his batting. And then to drop 3 catches, that he, just fell short of winning his team the match. So, and he said that himself, by the way, in the press conference. So very disappointing, very ugly to see. At one point, Ashwin had been smashed on the ribs, which he had made his quick bowlers bowl bouncers into the guy's body. So Ashwin was dealing with his chest guard, and which he took off for the spinner and put back on for the quick. And Tim Payne loudly is saying, "This is ridiculous. Let's get on with it." At another point, he's talking while Nathan Lyon's running in. He's constantly chirping at Ashwin. I thought Ashwin was great. He responded back to him. He's as Varun said earlier, he said, "I can't wait for the Gabba." Ashwin said, "Come to India. That'll be the last series you ever play." I was secretly disappointed. I was like, Ashwin, if you had just said, "Listen, man, I'm a bowler and I have 4 more centuries than you do," that would have been the light of the day. So anyway, disappointing. I lost a lot of respect for Tim Payne in the last day or so because his team was not doing well and his ugly side of his personality came out. But that's part of the toxic Australian culture that we talked about.
I think Ashwin probably considers himself an all-rounder with those 4 test centuries. But I mean, it wasn't just Tim Payne. You had Matthew Wade trying to square off against Ashwin. It was all sorts of drama, man. It was emotional. Obviously, it meant a lot to them. There's no Kohli. There's half the Indian team isn't there. I mean, more than half of our first choice players aren't there. We're playing a third 11. And if we are going into the Gabba with a chance to win the series, I mean, I think that's a real reflection on the Australian side, right? Anyway, Varun, there's been criticisms from some quarters, I'm not going to name who, that India should have gone for the win. What do you make of that criticism, Varun?
Look, there is a section of people who are saying that. I got a lot of messages about that as well. I think the point is you have to, I'm trying to find the best way to articulate this. You have to go back and dig deep into the 1990s where you're waking up at 5:55 a.m. You're seeing India struggle for 30 days in a row over the 4 test matches. And when you think about a new age India, yes, we are used to winning. We expect them to win, but we also expect them to win with the A side, right? Rishabh Pant got us into the game. He put us in a situation where we could have won. But even when you think of a Kushal Pereira or a Ben Stokes who did something similar, they started off much later. It did not start so early. So I think the point is that India, the minute Pant got out, and Vihari injured his hamstring, India was always going to be playing for the draw. And the fact that they could play out 240 balls in what we call a T20 era, if you can bat time, I think that is just beautiful. We have not seen that for a long time. And kudos to the entire team for just kind of pushing behind that kind of train of thought and playing for the draw. Because what you often don't realize, and I think Warren or some commentator said this, is that no matter how well you bat on this particular pitch, there is one ball with your name written on it, right? And if you're not watchful and if you go for the win, you're going to be in a situation where you could have lost by 200 runs. And going into the Gabba, I think that would have demoralized and demotivated the team completely. Remember, Australia has never lost at the Gabba since 1980. We are now going to be playing without our B team as well. So we're going to be now putting up a C team at the Gabba. And I think it's important for us to be going in at 1-1 with the hope and the belief that this team can do anything.
And the pressure is all on Australia to win back the Border Gavaskar Trophy, because remember, if it's 1-1 at the end of it, India goes home with the Border Gavaskar Trophy being the current holders. Ashwin, I know it's been a long show, but I want to talk a little bit about the Indian team. Is it the toughest team ever that we have seen in our lifetimes, purely in terms of character? These 2 test matches, what has it told you about the character of this team under Ajinkya Rahane?
Yeah, I mean, it has to be, right? Let's go with let's go with a summary, and I'm probably going to miss stuff, but from being away from your families to bio bubbles to quarantines to people losing parents and still not being able to go back there to the issues with the bio bubble, like just sitting to have a meal and having those types of issues, to injuries. We are not playing 5 at least of our first 11, of our ideal first 11 in a test team, like from Kohli to Ishant to Shami, to like everybody's getting injured, to racism in the stands. When you're trying to fight hard, you're subject to racism and abuse in the stand, to all of the above, and to come out and fight. Honestly, I'm so thrilled with the result. Like I said, I was so excited I couldn't sleep. But even if we had lost, let's say we had lost, I would have still been so unbelievably proud of this Indian team, because to get to that final session, to fight the way they did, to battle through injury, battle through racism, battle through all the barriers we said, I'm just so incredibly proud. And I think on the previous question, Varun was sugarcoating it a little bit. Anybody who said this team should have gone for the win doesn't understand Test cricket. They just don't. You don't understand how the game is supposed to be played.
I actually have a lump in my throat and a little bit of a tear in my eye while you've been talking about it. It's the overwhelming emotion really is pride in this team. These guys do so much, right? I mean, we're so quick to criticize them, and we jump all over them for all sorts of stupid stuff. But the amount of joy that they give us when they do well, it's disproportional, right? Like when I watch an Indian team do well, my mood is disproportionately affected. When they're 36 all out, my mood is disproportionately affected. We are so invested in this team, and they clearly care. They clearly care about their performance. So to talk about their intent and the fight for their stomach for the fight, and they should have gone for the win. I mean, they are doing the best that they can. They are playing their heart out in Australia. I mean, having lived through the 90s, and I mean, maybe some people have watched India play even before that. I mean, this is an unbelievable performance by an Indian team to be 1-all. The greatest performance that I can remember is 2003-2004, where we came away from a series 1-all, which was a huge success against Australia in Australia. So, I mean, for us to say that, oh, we haven't gone for the win, I just think it's unreal. Anyway, guys, long show. Let's talk about the Gabba test in the next 5 minutes, and then we're going to wrap. There was a lot of controversy, India don't want to play at the Gabba. There was also controversy, they're only raising racism issues because they're losing. So I'm really glad that's gone away. But India don't want to play at the Gabba because they've never won at the Gabba. Australia never lose at the Gabba. All of that has now gone away. The 4th test will proceed at the Gabba. There will be the COVID protocols now are in place. There shouldn't be a hard quarantine, etc., which was the original issue. Jadeja is out. We don't know about Vihari. We don't know about Ashwin. Guys, Lions' comments were India just need to suck it up and play wherever they are told to play, which is slightly insensitive given the weird and wonderful times we live in, away from family, etc. Guys, what is going to happen at the Gabba? Varun, I'm totally emotionally spent, so I'm going to let you guys talk about this.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Gabba is going to be our toughest test. I think Australia is going to come out extremely hard. I think the fact that the conditions may not suit us great, as well as the fact that we are playing half of the guys that we probably would have liked to see play in a final test match in Australia, all of that is going to play heavily on our minds, and it's going to be a tough fight. But having said that, I'm not 100% sure the route India is going to take, because there is an argument that says your Bumrah and Ashwin have bowled a lot this series. They're tired. And so you have to figure out how to go with the 5th bowler. There's another school of thought that says the Gabba is one of the most fast, bouncy, fast-paced wickets in Australia. And my gut tells me in that situation, you want to be able to play an extra batsman. So right now, there are lots of ifs and buts. We don't know if Pant is going to keep. We don't know if India is going to play another, a 5-bowler strategy, because if you play 5 bowlers, you're effectively talking 5 pure bowlers. So it weakens your batting. My gut feel, and I think the way we should just kind of wrap this up is just give our gut feel on who we think is going to play. I do think Mayank Agarwal will come into the team and bat in the middle order, which I think is the right move. And yeah, so Mayank, actually the issue is we don't even know if Vihari is going to play. So I'm just going to say right now, let's assume Pant is playing, let's assume Vihari is playing. I have a feeling Mayank Agarwal will come in.
Ashwin, how badly would the Australians have taken that draw? Because it feels like a moral victory for us, but they've also bowled a lot of overs. 131 overs is a lot of overs. It's the 5th highest number of overs we've ever batted out to play out a draw. So do you think that would have taken a physical toll on the Australian bowlers as well, with the next test starting 3 days later?
Yeah, it absolutely would have, right? I'm just checking. Stark bowled 22, Hazel bowled 26, Cummins bowled 26. So a lot of overs under their belt, and there's only 3 days gap. So I think I'm not even sure all 3 Aussie bowlers are going to be 100% fit. If they play without being 100% fit, does that hurt their chances as well? So I honestly, I'm just so emotionally spent and drained from the previous test. I haven't really thought about who's going to come in next. I think Varun's right. My uncle will probably come in. We'll probably go to a 4-bowler strategy because it's not worth, unless you have a Jadeja as your 5th bowler, it's not worth having a pure 5th bowler. And it'll be interesting to see who slots in bowls if they need to find a bowler to fill a couple of overs. So it just
Varun, maybe a debut for Natarajan?
Yeah, I hope so, man. I hope so, but I hope it doesn't put too much pressure on him, because if Warner, Smith and Labuschagne all get cracking at the Gabba, it's going to be a tough time for India. So I hope Natarajan plays. I hope Mayank plays and bowls a little bit to relieve that pressure the same way Marnus does for Australia. But my personal opinion is India needs to play 4 bowlers.
So, and I think if Mayank plays, he bats up the order and Rohit goes to 4 and everybody slips down 1. That would be my ideal combination. But guys, let's put it all on the line. It's been a long show. It's been a long series, right? There's a lot of emotion running high. But let's think of this very objectively, very coolly. Who is walking away with the Border Gavaskar trophy? Ashwin, you go first.
I have to believe India retains it. I have to believe it. I don't know whether it's by a draw or a win, but I believe India retains it.
Varun, your call on the Border Gavaskar trophy and the Gabba test result?
Draw. Let's be optimistic. Draw. Yeah.
Okay, so we've got 2 draws. India retains it. I'm going to go with an India win. So 2-1, like 2018. India win, walk away with the most famous win in the history of the game. Guys, it has been an incredible show. Thank you so much for joining me. Emotions are still running really high. Let's see how the Gabba test plays out. But enjoy this win, guys. And all our listeners, thank you so much for writing in. Thank you so much for writing us on Twitter. Thank you for joining us on Discord. It has been an incredible journey. We will see you after the test match is done at Brisbane. We'll do a wrap of the series. Until then, write into us at OneTipOneHand on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. When contact at OneTipOneHand.com. Join our Discord channel. We'll put a link in the show notes. And guys, enjoy this feeling. We will see you very soon with the next episode. Thanks.
I hope you enjoyed that show. If you aren't following us on social media, please do. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. So everybody, please do help us out with our survey if you haven't filled it out yet. It's on ivmpodcast.com/survey. This survey is really helpful for us. And, fill out the survey completely and we'll put you into a lucky draw and we will send you some IVM swag. And what a great week of episodes we had, and what an eventful week we had. Let me run through some of the episode highlights really quickly. On Pesa Vesa, Samir Nair of Applause Entertainment was on to discuss the web series Scam 1992. Great conversation with Anupam was had. Do check that out. Bhavish Sumaya of Hasbro was on Advertising is Dead. On Positively Unlimited, Chitna is starting a new series from A to Z. This week, Align. Do check that out. And on GabyCD, Farhad and Sunetra asked the question, what if they were straight? Interesting conversation. Definitely do check that out. I think you'll enjoy that. And one piece of news for you guys. Cyrus Says is now live on YouTube every weekday at 10 a.m. If you go to our IVM Podcast YouTube channel, you'll be able to catch us over there. And stay tuned for a lot more video content coming out in the next couple of weeks. And with that, I hope to see you again next week.
Whether you're an established sports person or a budding one, or simply a sports enthusiast, join us, Tanvi and Shlok.
We are 2 passionate pro badminton players talking policy, mindset and everything sport.
So tune in to The Millennial Athlete every Monday.
Only on the IVM Podcast Network.
Trust us, it's gonna be lit.